The stars outside the window of the Xylar flagship glittered like shards of ice against the endless black. Commander Alex Rains stood rigid, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the alien fleet that stretched beyond sight. For years, humans had fought the Xylar Empire, a species as cunning as they were ruthless, and yet here he was in the heart of their territory, facing their leader, Queen Zareth herself. The council chamber of the flagship was enormous, a space that seemed to shimmer with energy. Light reflected off crystalline surfaces, casting strange patterns across the room. The Xylar nobles, tall and lithe, watched him with curiosity and barely concealed suspicion. Their eyes, black as obsidian, glimmered with intelligence and danger. Alex felt the weight of 1,000 decisions pressing on him at once. Each move he made would matter not just for himself, but for all of humanity. When the doors finally slid open with a whisper, the chamber fell silent. Zareth entered, her presence commanding attention even without a word. She moved with grace, every step precise, her alien features sharp and mesmerizing. Her armor gleamed faintly, a soft glow that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. Alex could feel the tension in the room tighten, as if the very air had thickened. "Commander Rains," Zareth said, her voice calm yet sharp, carrying over the chamber like a blade. "You have performed admirably in battle. Your people are resilient." There was a pause, almost playful, but her gaze never wavered. However, resilience alone does not end wars. He had prepared for negotiations, for insults, for even traps. But what came next would defy every expectation he had ever held about alien diplomacy. "Marry me immediately, human, or the war continues." For a moment he thought this must be some kind of test, some elaborate trick designed to humiliate him. "Excuse me," Alex managed, his voice steady despite the shock. "Do not play games, Commander," Zareth replied, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You have two choices. Consent to join me or witness the continuation of this war, which your people have no hope of winning." He straightened his back, his mind racing. "And if I refuse?" he asked, keeping his tone calm, deliberate. "You will continue the war as you promised." "You have until the end of this council to decide." Finally, one of his aides, Lieutenant Mara Collins, stepped forward. "Sir, what do we do? This is insane. We can't marry an alien queen. It's impossible. We need to find a way to turn this to our advantage." Every word, every gesture, every move has meaning now. If he could demonstrate these qualities without submitting to her demand, he might gain leverage. The first step was simple observation. During a demonstration of Xylar war simulations, Alex noticed a pattern. The nobles deferred to the queen when she displayed confidence, but they were willing to question her when she made a decision that seemed reckless. This gave him a faint edge, a way to subtly influence the court without overtly challenging the queen. As the day progressed, Zareth returned, her expression unreadable. "Have you decided, Commander?" she asked, her voice calm but carrying the weight of inevitability. Alex paused, choosing his words carefully. "Your Majesty," he began, bowing slightly, "I respect your strength and the wisdom of your empire. But humanity is not a species that can be commanded into submission. We can negotiate, we can cooperate, but we do not bend to ultimatums. Perhaps there is another way to end this conflict, one that benefits both our peoples." The nobles exchanged glances, and Alex could sense the tension in the air. Zareth's expression did not change, but there was a flicker in her eyes, a recognition that the human before her was unusual. "You are bold, human," she said finally, a hint of amusement in her tone. "Boldness is admirable, but boldness without power is foolish. You must understand the stakes. If you refuse, your world dies. If you accept, you may yet survive." Over the next days, Alex engaged in what he called the dance of diplomacy. He answered the queen's questions with wit. He demonstrated knowledge of Xylar culture and strategy, and he subtly suggested alternatives to war. Every answer was calculated, every gesture deliberate. The nobles began to murmur among themselves, impressed by his composure and intelligence. Meanwhile, Alex's crew worked behind the scenes. Scientists and engineers examined the Xylar technology, seeking weaknesses. Strategists studied the Empire's political structures, identifying factions that might be sympathetic to an alliance rather than conquest. Every small discovery gave Alex another piece of the puzzle, another lever he could use to tip the balance in humanity's favor. One evening, as Alex walked alone along a narrow observation corridor, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. The stars stretched endlessly, but his thoughts were focused on a single question. How could humans survive against a species that could crush them at will? The answer was becoming clear. It was not strength alone that mattered. It was cunning, creativity, and the ability to turn expectations upside down. Humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was their greatest weapon. When Zareth entered the corridor, Alex did not flinch. "You are studying the stars," she said, her tone neutral. "Or studying me. Perhaps that is what you are learning. But I also believe that there is more to victory than force, and more to survival than submission." The marriage ultimatum was not simply a threat. It was a test, a puzzle, and perhaps the first step in a larger plan that could determine the fate of humanity. And Alex intended to prove, in every move he made, that humans were a species that could never be underestimated. The stars outside the window continued to shine, indifferent to the tension within the flagship. But Alex felt a surge of determination. He had faced impossible odds before, and he would do so again. Humanity had survived countless battles, and it would survive this one, not by submission, but by intelligence, courage, and the kind of unpredictability that no alien could fully understand. For now, the dance had begun, and Commander Alex Rains was ready to lead. The following days were tense beyond anything Alex had experienced in his life. The Xylar flagship, which had once seemed merely a fortress, now felt like a vast chessboard, and he was a single piece trying to outmaneuver an opponent who understood strategy better than anyone he had ever met. Queen Zareth's ultimatum loomed over him like a shadow, but Alex was determined not to be intimidated. Meetings with the Queen became daily events. Each session began with her calm, calculating gaze, and each ended with Alex exhausted yet oddly exhilarated. Zareth had a way of pushing him to think faster, to consider angles he had never imagined. She asked questions not just about humanity, but about him personally, probing his character, his values, and his reasoning. "You speak often of human ingenuity," she said one afternoon, her eyes glinting. "Yet ingenuity alone cannot save your world. Tell me, Commander Rains, how do you measure the worth of your species?" "Humans are not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the largest, but we find ways to survive when others fail. That is worth more than brute strength." Over the next several days, Zareth put him through tests of intelligence, strategy, and endurance. These were disguised as cultural rituals for the proposed marriage, but Alex recognized them for what they were: attempts to see if humans could rise to challenges without faltering. In one test, he was asked to negotiate a conflict between two powerful Xylar factions. The factions had been feuding for generations, and the Queen expected failure. Most humans would have panicked, but Alex approached the problem differently. He studied the motivations of each faction, learned their fears and desires, and devised a solution that satisfied both sides. He did not simply compromise. He found a way to make each faction believe they had gained the upper hand. Zareth watched silently as the factions shook hands, astonished. "Clever," she said, her voice a quiet admission of respect. "Few humans could achieve that. Most would choose the simpler path, confrontation, or submission. You think beyond the obvious." He knew that every success in these tests was more than a personal victory. It was a demonstration to the Xylar that humans were unpredictable and capable of ingenuity that could rival even their own advanced logic. Meanwhile, his team worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Scientists examined Xylar technology, searching for weaknesses. Engineers studied the flagship systems, seeking ways to use its complexity to their advantage. Every detail Alex learned about the Queen and her empire became a tool he could use in his strategy. He realized that understanding the Xylar mind was as important as understanding their technology. One evening, as he sat alone in the observation deck, Alex thought about the nature of this strange ultimatum. Marrying the Queen was unthinkable, but the fact that she had even considered him suggested something important. She valued certain qualities in a human: strength, intelligence, courage, and perhaps a form of moral reasoning that she found intriguing. Zareth appeared quietly, standing beside him without a word. They looked out at the stars together, a silence stretching between them that was almost comfortable. "You think humans are interesting," she said finally, breaking the quiet. "Do you know why I issued the ultimatum, Commander?" "I can guess, but I would like to hear your reasoning, Your Majesty." "To see if you have what it takes to survive, and perhaps even thrive, under conditions where most would fail. Not by submission, not by fear, but by showing the strength of humanity in ways you do not expect." He was tested in alien languages and codes, required to understand customs and behaviors that seemed illogical by human standards. Each success brought him more respect, but also more scrutiny. Every failure could be catastrophic. One challenge involved the flagship's defense systems. The Queen asked him to secure the vessel against an imaginary attack, knowing that humans had no access to the full technological complexity of the Xylar fleet. Most would have failed instantly. But Alex saw patterns in the systems, understood their logic, and used them in creative ways. He created redundancies and defenses that even some Xylar officers had not considered, impressing the court once again. His successes began to ripple through the court. Some nobles whispered among themselves, speculating that humans were not as weak as they had believed. They began to see value in Alex's presence, not as a mere hostage or curiosity, but as a representative of a species that could be unpredictable and therefore powerful in its own way. Meanwhile, the Queen's intentions became clearer. She was not seeking submission, nor was she attempting to humiliate humanity outright. Instead, she was observing, testing, and perhaps even learning from the human before her. Alex realized that she respected qualities that many humans took for granted: ingenuity, courage, adaptability, and moral reasoning. These were the tools that could allow humanity to survive and even flourish against overwhelming odds. In a private moment, Alex confided in Mara. "I think she admires us," he said, leaning against the railing of the observation deck. "Not in the way we admire someone, but in the way a scientist admires a rare phenomenon. She sees potential and she's testing it." "I know, but if we play our cards right, we can turn this test into an advantage. She respects intelligence and boldness. That's something we can use." This was the battlefield where humans could shine, not through brute force, but through strategy, creativity, and moral courage. Then came the day of the most difficult challenge yet. The Queen announced a simulated battle exercise, with Xylar fleets on one side and a human fleet under Alex's command on the other. The simulation was designed to show human weaknesses, to reveal the flaws in his thinking, and to confirm the Xylar belief that humans were inferior in warfare. Alex studied the simulation carefully. The enemy forces were overwhelming, far more advanced than anything the humans could realistically counter. But he noticed patterns in their movement, weaknesses in their coordination, and opportunities that even the Xylar officers had overlooked. As the simulation began, Alex issued commands with precision. He used feints and distractions, drawing the enemy into traps of their own design. He coordinated attacks that seemed improbable but were executed flawlessly by his human team. The Xylar court watched in stunned silence as the humans, against all odds, turned the tide of the simulation. When the exercise ended, Zareth approached him, her expression calm but intense. "You continue to surprise me, Commander Rains. Most humans would have fallen into panic. You do not. You plan, you adapt, you anticipate. That is remarkable." The war, she realized, might not end through dominance alone. It might end through respect, ingenuity, and negotiation. That night, as Alex returned to his quarters, he allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The ultimatum still hung over him like a sword, but the dynamic had changed. He had proven that humans could meet challenges that seemed impossible. He had shown courage, intelligence, and creativity in ways that even the Xylar had to acknowledge. Humanity had survived countless battles, not by being the strongest, but by being clever, adaptable, and resilient. And now, standing in the heart of enemy territory, Alex Rains realized that these qualities were more valuable than any weapon. They were the true measure of strength, the qualities that no empire, no matter how advanced, could predict or control. As he gazed out at the stars once more, Alex felt a renewed determination. The war was far from over, but the game had changed. Humans were no longer merely opponents to be conquered, they were a force to be respected. And Commander Alex Rains intended to show the Xylar and the galaxy just how formidable humanity could be. The days grew longer and more complex aboard the Xylar flagship. Commander Alex Rains had become a figure of interest not only to Queen Zareth, but to her entire court. Whispers of his cleverness and calm under pressure spread quickly among the nobles, creating ripples that neither Alex nor the Queen had anticipated. Yet with every small victory, the stakes rose higher. Every challenge became more dangerous, every choice more critical. Zareth summoned Alex to the Grand Observation Hall, a space unlike any he had seen before. The walls shimmered with living energy, displaying holographic constellations and star charts. Her fleet, both real and virtual, sprawled across the room as if to remind him of the sheer power behind her words. "Commander Rains," she began, her voice smooth and measured, "you have proven your mind capable of strategy, negotiation, and adaptation. But true strength lies not just in intellect, it lies in action. Your next test will show if humanity can endure in the chaos of war itself. Unlike before, this one will have real consequences. Failure will reveal weaknesses. Success may earn your species respect. Any misstep on his part could be disastrous." He turned to his team, a mix of human officers and Xylar observers assigned to evaluate the exercise. "We don't have the numbers or the speed," he said plainly, "but we have unpredictability. That is our advantage. Watch for patterns, anticipate their moves, and use their confidence against them." Alex deployed small, deceptive squads to distract the enemy while concentrating his primary forces on the Xylar supply lines. At first, the Xylar officers monitoring the exercise muttered under their breath, certain the humans would fail. But Alex had anticipated their reactions. He created situations where the Xylar fleet would overextend, then used speed and unconventional tactics to isolate and disable key units. Zareth watched silently, her expression unreadable. Yet Alex noticed a subtle change in her posture, a tension in her eyes that suggested curiosity and perhaps approval. Hours passed, and the simulation became increasingly complex. Unexpected scenarios arose: sudden asteroid fields, energy anomalies, and enemy reinforcements. Each time, Alex adapted. He improvised new strategies, often relying on his understanding of Xylar logic to predict their responses. The humans moved like a single, intelligent organism, their coordination and ingenuity revealing strengths the Xylar had not expected. Finally, the exercise concluded. Human forces had not only survived, they had achieved victory, albeit with calculated risk and clever misdirection. The room was silent, the Xylar nobles staring in astonishment at the screens displaying the outcome. Zareth stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Remarkable," she said quietly. "Most humans would have faltered, failed, or panicked. You did not. You adapted, you led. You surprised me." But the celebration was brief. That evening, Alex and his team discovered a troubling development. Sensors aboard the flagship detected a covert operation initiated by a faction of Xylar loyalists who opposed Zareth's interest in testing humanity. They planned to exploit the simulation's outcome to launch a real attack on human assets in the galaxy. Alex convened an emergency strategy meeting. "This is no longer a simulation," he said gravely. "Some of our own people are trying to turn the results against us. We need to act carefully. One wrong move and it won't just be a test, it will be war. How can we counter this without triggering a full-scale attack?" They would use a combination of subterfuge, timing, and selective engagement to neutralize the rogue faction without causing collateral damage. The operation required precise coordination, trust, and absolute confidence in human ingenuity. The night of the operation arrived. Alex led a small strike team through the ship's underbelly, moving silently past Xylar security. Every step was calculated, every decision weighed. They reached the control nodes where the rogue faction had embedded their attack protocols. Using clever improvisation, Alex manipulated the systems to create the illusion of compliance while subtly redirecting the faction's own weapons back toward their positions. The plan worked flawlessly. The faction was neutralized without a single human casualty, and the Xylar court was none the wiser. When the operation concluded, Alex returned to the observation deck. Zareth was waiting, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "You acted without my command," she said quietly. "Yet you succeeded. Most would have failed. Your Majesty, humans have a way of surviving that does not rely on obedience alone. We adapt, we innovate, and we take responsibility for our actions. That is how we endure. But tell me, do you understand why I set these tests? And you have shown me that humans are more than I expected. Yet the war continues. There are others who would challenge you, who do not understand your capabilities. Are you prepared to face them?" "That is our strength." In the following days, Alex continued to engage in delicate negotiations. He used the respect he had earned to broker alliances with moderate Xylar factions, factions that had long been dissatisfied with the Queen's hardline policies. He demonstrated that humans could not be conquered by threats alone, but that cooperation and ingenuity could achieve what brute force never could. Meanwhile, the Queen's observation intensified. She began to involve Alex in strategic discussions, testing him not just in simulated scenarios, but in real-world diplomacy and decision-making. Every choice he made carried the potential to shift the balance of power in the galaxy. And Alex, ever mindful of his responsibility, continued to prove that humanity was a species capable of extraordinary solutions under pressure. One evening, as Alex walked along the observation deck, he reflected on the journey so far. The marriage ultimatum, once a threat, had become a platform for proving human worth. He had demonstrated not only courage and intelligence, but also ethical reasoning, creativity, and adaptability. In every test, he had shown that humans were unpredictable in ways that even the Xyler could respect. Zareth appeared beside him once more, silent at first. Then she spoke, her voice carrying a note of admiration. "Commander Rains, your people are fascinating. They do not yield, they do not bend easily, and they do not follow the path of least resistance. I underestimated them, and I underestimated you. Yet I am confident that humanity can face it, as we always have, by thinking, adapting, and enduring. The war might continue, but humanity had already proven itself in ways that no Xyler, no matter how powerful, could have anticipated." Alex felt a surge of determination. The universe would learn in time that humans were a force not to be underestimated. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the observation deck, and in their reflection, Alex saw the endless possibilities ahead. He had survived the Queen's tests, navigated the dangers of her court, and demonstrated the power of human ingenuity. Now, the next challenge awaited, and he was ready. The days aboard the Xyler flagship had begun to feel like a living, breathing puzzle, each moment a test of wit and endurance. Commander Alex Rains walked the corridors with measured steps, his mind constantly calculating, predicting, and observing. The marriage ultimatum still loomed over him, yet it had evolved. What had once been a threat had become a stage, a platform where he could prove the depth of human ingenuity and the strength of his species' resolve. Alex knew that to survive, he would need to act carefully. Each interaction with Queen Zareth was a delicate balance. One wrong gesture, one misstep, could unravel all he had achieved. Yet with every passing day, he discovered opportunities, subtle openings that revealed themselves only to those willing to study and understand the Xyler mind. The Queen summoned him to the command chamber. The room was filled with star charts, holographic projections of fleets, and panels of alien technology that pulsed with energy. Zareth's expression was unreadable, but there was an unmistakable intensity in her eyes. "Commander Rains," she began, her tone smooth yet sharp, "your people have surprised me. Their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to survive against overwhelming odds is impressive. Yet the true test is not observation alone, it is action. Certain factions, dissatisfied with my leadership, have begun to challenge the authority of the crown. If they are not stopped, this could ignite a war within the empire. You will help resolve this without direct confrontation. You will use your mind, not your weapons." But this was different. This was real-world strategy, testing not just his intelligence but his ability to influence a complex political environment. It was a challenge humans were uniquely suited for, thinking in unpredictable ways to manipulate outcomes without violence. He gathered his team. "We're going to use a combination of strategy, diplomacy, and ingenuity. Direct force will only make things worse. We need to outthink them, anticipate their moves, and create situations where the solution seems inevitable to them but benefits us as well. Make them see a path that they believe is their own idea but which leads to stability. Humans are good at this. We've done it countless times in our own history. Now we'll do it on a galactic scale." He observed their leaders, noting subtle patterns in behavior and identifying points where logic conflicted with personal desire. The Xyler valued strength and cunning, but like any species, they were susceptible to pride, fear, and ambition. Alex intended to use these human insights to navigate the crisis. He began a series of carefully orchestrated interventions. Through subtle suggestions, indirect communication, and strategic displays of resourcefulness, he sowed doubt among the rebellious factions without revealing human involvement. He created situations where the factions believed they were gaining advantage, only to find that each move inadvertently strengthened Zareth's authority. Meanwhile, the Queen observed silently, her expression betraying neither surprise nor approval. Yet Alex sensed her interest. She was watching not only the outcomes but the process itself. how a human approached problems, adapted to complexity, and guided events through intellect and creativity rather than force. One particular challenge arose when a group of Xylar officers attempted to sabotage a supply line critical to the flagship's operations. If they succeeded, it would have been a significant blow to both the simulation and Alex's influence. He acted quickly. Using a combination of holographic projections, coded messages, and strategic misdirection, he rerouted the officers' plans. They believed they were operating independently, unaware that each action they took strengthened the stability of Zareth's fleet and reinforced Alex's credibility. By the end of the day, the factions had been pacified, their challenges neutralized, and the fleet stabilized, all without a single shot fired. The Queen finally spoke, her voice tinged with rare admiration. "Commander Rains, your methods are unconventional. Most humans would have tried to confront, to dominate, to force obedience. Yet you have done what many thought impossible. You stabilized my fleet without direct action, without violence, through intellect alone. This is remarkable. Your Majesty, humans have survived through adaptability, creativity, and understanding others. We don't always fight with strength alone. Sometimes, thinking carefully, anticipating, and guiding events is more powerful than any weapon. You are more resourceful, more cunning, and more capable of navigating complexity than I imagined. Yet there is more to this war than internal strife. External threats still loom, and your people's survival is not guaranteed. Can you guide them through what is to come? Our strength is our mind, our creativity, and our courage. That is how we survive and thrive." The Queen's tests were no longer theoretical. They were shaping reality, and Alex was demonstrating that human ingenuity could match and even surpass the Xylar in certain areas. Meanwhile, Alex did not neglect the ongoing preparations for his ultimate objective, ensuring humanity's survival and strengthening its position in the galaxy. His team worked tirelessly, studying the flagship's technology, identifying weaknesses in enemy supply lines, and developing strategies to exploit them if necessary. Then came a moment that tested both his intellect and his leadership. A rogue Xylar fleet, loyal to factions opposed to Zareth, attempted to seize control of a critical orbital station near a resource-rich moon. The Queen's forces were divided, caught between maintaining internal stability and responding to the external threat. Alex seized the opportunity. He devised a plan that relied on deception, timing, and human unpredictability. Small, fast-moving human teams infiltrated key positions, appearing where they were least expected. The Xylar forces were forced to respond in ways that played directly into the human strategy, creating confusion and hesitation. Through careful coordination, the orbital station was secured, the rogue fleet neutralized, and the Xylar factions convinced that Zareth's authority was unassailable. Alex had turned a potentially catastrophic situation into a decisive victory, all without a single human casualty. When the dust settled, Zareth addressed him once more. "You have done what few could achieve. You have preserved stability, protected lives, and demonstrated the effectiveness of your species in ways I had not imagined. Humans are not merely survivors, they are innovators, strategists, and leaders. This is impressive. We face challenges not by brute force alone, but by thinking, planning, and acting with courage." She saw the value of human intellect and ingenuity, while Alex had learned to navigate a world far more complex than any battlefield he had encountered. As the week drew to a close, Alex reflected on the progress made. He had neutralized internal threats, secured critical assets, and demonstrated that humans could operate with intelligence, strategy, and ethical reasoning even under extreme pressure. Humanity's reputation within the Xylar Empire had shifted from curiosity to respect, and the Queen's perception of humans had changed profoundly. Yet Alex knew that the ultimate challenge still lay ahead. The war was not over. The Queen's ultimatum still stood, and external threats to Earth and its allies continued to loom. But for the first time, he had a platform from which humans could influence the outcome, not as victims, but as respected participants in galactic affairs. Standing on the observation deck, gazing at the stars stretching endlessly beyond the flagship, Alex felt a surge of determination. Humanity had proven its worth in ways the Xylar could not have predicted. Its creativity, courage, and intellect were weapons as powerful as any fleet or weapon system. And with careful strategy, humans could leverage these qualities to secure survival, influence, and perhaps victory. Zareth approached silently, her presence as commanding as ever. "You have shown that humans are capable of far more than I imagined," she said softly. "Perhaps the universe has underestimated them. And perhaps it is time for me to reconsider my approach to this war. We will continue to do so, by thinking, by planning, and by acting boldly when necessary." The journey was far from over, but the tide had begun to turn. Humanity's ingenuity had started to shift the balance of power, not through brute force, but through strategy, adaptability, and the unique qualities that defined his species. As the stars outside stretched into infinity, Alex Rains understood one undeniable truth. Humans were capable of extraordinary achievements, even in the face of a galaxy that seemed designed to challenge them at every turn. And as long as he lived, he would continue to demonstrate, in every decision and every action, that humanity was a force no empire could ever fully predict or control. The galaxy was quiet, yet charged with the tension of unspoken possibilities. Commander Alex Rains stood on the observation deck of the Xylar flagship, watching the stars stretch endlessly across the void. The weeks of tests, simulations, and delicate negotiations had brought humanity to a place few had imagined possible. Not just survival, but influence, respect, and a chance to shape the future of interstellar politics. The ultimatum that had once threatened to crush him like a hammer now seemed almost symbolic, a reminder that challenges could be transformed into opportunities. Humanity had endured, adapted, and proven its worth in ways even Queen Zareth could not have anticipated. Yet the war was not fully over, and Alex knew the galaxy still held unpredictable dangers. Zareth approached silently, her presence as commanding as ever, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "Commander Rains," she said, her voice calm but heavy with thought, "your people have proven themselves capable of remarkable strategy, ingenuity, and courage. Yet I must ask, what is the ultimate goal of humanity? Survival, power, influence? We do not seek conquest, but cooperation and respect. We want a place in the galaxy where our species can grow without fear of annihilation. That is our goal. Force is not always the solution, and I have learned that even the most powerful empire can benefit from partnership rather than domination. Your Majesty, humans are unpredictable, yes, but we are also capable of loyalty, cooperation, and great creativity when given the chance. I propose an alliance, humanity and the Xylar factions willing to embrace reason rather than conflict. Without bending to my will. The war will end, not through surrender, not through marriage, but through understanding, negotiation, and respect. This is unprecedented even for the Xylar. He had navigated impossible odds, earned the respect of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and secured a future for humanity that had once seemed impossible. Yet the work was not done. Even as peace was declared, threats remained. Rogue factions within the Xylar Empire, external aggressors from distant star systems, and the ever-present unpredictability of interstellar politics. Alex turned to his team, his resolve unshaken. "This is only the beginning. We've proven that humans can influence events even where we are outnumbered and outgunned. Now we must solidify our alliances and ensure our survival in the long term. The galaxy will remember this." Diplomats from Earth worked alongside their Xylar counterparts to develop treaties and trade agreements. It was a delicate process. Some Xylar factions resisted, suspicious of human intentions, while others embraced the opportunity for change. Alex's approach relied on patience, careful reasoning, and the demonstration of human ingenuity. He organized training exercises, strategy simulations, and joint operations, all designed to build trust and prove that humans could contribute more than mere numbers. They could lead, innovate, and solve complex problems in ways the Xylar had not anticipated. Meanwhile, the Queen observed quietly, allowing Alex to guide decisions while evaluating outcomes. Her respect for humanity grew, tempered by cautious awareness of the unpredictable qualities that made them so formidable. Alex realized that this mutual recognition was the foundation of lasting peace. The Queen's initial ultimatum had been a test, but it had also been a bridge, a chance for two civilizations to understand each other beyond the battlefield. One pivotal moment arrived when a neutral sector in the Xylar Empire faced a potential rebellion. The region was rich in resources but unstable politically. Alex proposed a joint operation, combining human strategic planning with Xylar strength to stabilize the area. The operation was complex. It required negotiations with local leaders, precise timing, and creative problem-solving. During the operation, Alex implemented a series of unconventional tactics. He orchestrated decoy maneuvers, used psychological insight to anticipate leaders' decisions, and coordinated simultaneous negotiations to reduce resistance. By the end of the operation, the sector was stable, key leaders pledged loyalty to Zareth's authority, and the local population began to see humans as capable allies rather than mere outsiders. When the operation concluded, Zareth approached him once more. "You have proven that humans are not only survivors, but leaders and innovators. Your species is capable of influencing events on a scale I never expected. I misjudged you, Commander Rains. That is our strength. Something to be respected." The victory was not about personal glory, but about proving the potential of humanity when it applied its greatest strengths. Trade agreements with Xylar factions began to take shape, introducing advanced technology, new strategies, and shared knowledge. Humans learned about the complexities of the galaxy, while Xylar leaders began to appreciate the unpredictable brilliance of human thought. Mutual respect replaced fear, and cooperation replaced conflict. In the final council meeting aboard the flagship, Zareth addressed Alex and the assembled representatives of both species. "The galaxy is vast and full of challenges, yet today we have taken a step toward a future built on understanding rather than conflict. Humans have proven themselves capable of innovation, courage, and adaptability. They are no longer merely subjects of observation. They are partners, allies, and worthy participants in the affairs of the galaxy. We are capable of greatness, and we will prove it not through domination, but through intelligence, creativity, and courage. This is the way we endure, thrive, and shape the future." The galaxy was still full of uncertainty, but humanity had demonstrated that it could face impossible odds and emerge not only alive but respected and influential. He thought of Earth, of the generations who had survived, built, and dreamed against adversity. He thought of the potential of his species, now recognized by allies and former adversaries alike. Zareth appeared beside him once more. "You have done more than survive, Commander Rains. You have changed the perception of humanity across an entire empire. That is extraordinary. Perhaps the universe is ready to see what humans can achieve. Perhaps it is finally time to recognize their true potential." The galaxy would remember this moment, and the humans who had shaped it with their intellect and determination. As he looked into the infinite expanse of stars, Alex understood that the story was far from over. New challenges, threats, and adventures awaited humanity among the stars. But for the first time, he knew that his species could face them, not as victims, but as innovators, leaders, and respected participants in the grand theater of the galaxy. And in that realization, he felt the quiet satisfaction of victory, a triumph not of weapons or numbers, but of the human spirit, the human mind, and the human heart. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and in their reflection, Alex saw the limitless possibilities of humanity. He had proven beyond doubt that humans were a force to be respected, a species capable of extraordinary achievements, and a light in the galaxy that could never be dimmed. The war was over, but the journey had only just begun. And Commander Alex Rains, standing among stars and allies alike, knew that humanity's future was boundless.